this is the infamous Supercharged Straight 8.
But the way those gears are made, there isn't just a simple bracket to hold them together.
Castor oil for the supercharger.
Yeah.
It's got acetone in the mixture.
Yes, some of the Bugattis have two handles outside, both the handbrake for the rear and the shifter.
Well, what's up, people? Still here at Laguna Seca for the Velocity Invitational, and I am with MHP, who is driving this unbelievable 1932 Bugatti Type 59. Hey, thanks for doing the video with me here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to drive the car, and I'm glad that you're here.
Oh, of course. Well, I got the opportunity to see you actually at speed today, and you were very understated and gentlemanly about it, but you were absolutely just, I don't have words, actually. It was that awesome to see the car go in. It ran very well. Now, this is the infamous Supercharged Straight 8, isn't that right?
That's true. Yes,
so,
indeed.
Can you tell them, they're familiar with Bugatti, a lot of people, and of course the modern ones, but why is this car so special?
So, Bugatti was known for their engineering, and some of the thought processes that went through making this car are the same sorts of things that happen now with modern F1. These were the Adrian Newey's, Gordon Murray's of the day. The engineering at Bugatti was so sophisticated, they would have the apprentices make from scratch from metal a vise, and that the jaws of the vise had to hold a cigarette paper, essentially.
I see.
The tolerances were that fine, and when you drive the car, you can tell that the tolerances in the engineering were that fine.
Indeed.
It's magnificent.
Well, there's no way you would have been able to go as fast as you were in a car from this era if it wasn't that way.
I was quite lucky, and the car is fabulous. The supercharging, it's not like a turbocharger on a modern car. It's always making boost.
Yes.
So now the car's quite peaky, so it makes its power over a narrow range, the way an F1 car would.
Now, what is its RPM range that you would use in this?
Well, so this is happy between 4,500 and 58, 6,000. It's pretty narrow.
Okay.
Which is unexpected for a supercharged car. They tend to have a broader power band, but that's what the gears are for. We have 4 usable gears. You keep it in its window, and it's a very happy car.
That's fantastic. Now, I've heard you describe this. Tell me a little bit about the fuel that you have to mix for this.
The fuel?
Yes.
Well, we have a wonderful mechanic, David Wallace, who mixes the various different ingredients, and he could tell you in detail that this one, I watched him do this the other day. One of the other crews was asking, how much do you use? And they were asking for a quarter cup, half a cup, and he took the jar unlabeled and went, splash. This. It was like watching Julia Child create. And it goes through, and it has this effect on the way the mixture burns.
Right.
And another component slows the mixture burn, and another component lubricates the supercharger on the way through. And thankfully, that knowledge hasn't been lost, and there are a few wonderful people who know how to do it. I get to drive the car, but part of the reason the car sings and I can do my part is that David has done his, and he's wonderful to drive for.
Well, and some of the things that we were talking, I think, castor oil for the supercharger.
Yeah.
It's got acetone in the mixture.
That it does.
Is there like a conventional gasoline of some kind in there?
Yeah. In fact, we started unconventional gasoline, which will light off much more quickly. So starting with
lower octane.
You know, I can't tell you if it's an octane issue or the volatility. That's a good chemist question, but what I can tell you is we just give it a little burst of gasoline. That helps, and then the alcohol fuel will get going. On a cold morning when the car hasn't been run for a while, the alcohol fuel doesn't like to get... It's as if, since the car runs on alcohol, it's hungover.
Right. Fair
so
enough.
It's a little sluggish.
May we open the bonnet to show them?
Let's do. How it goes.
Awesome.
You can even just opening the bonnet itself, you can see things like where the aluminum was welded together by a human, and the louvers were made by people.
Yes.
And
all of it by hand, and it's so wonderful to see that, because we've gotten so accustomed to the computer age, relating to everything from CNC to 3D printing to large-scale casting, that to look at this is just wonderful, because you know every single part someone made by hand.
And they knew how to do amazing things, and with CNC machines we can make more of them, and the repeatability is incredible. But you look at the sharp edges in the machining of even just the cam covers.
Oh, indeed.
And it's spectacular. Or you see the way the two carburetors are geared together.
Yes, and
to
if
be
you guys
synchronized.
see, we've got 2 downdraft carburetors here, and this is your throttle linkage, yeah?
But the way those gears are made, there isn't just a simple bracket to
Not at
hold
all.
them together.
Well,
And someone made that.
Well, we're getting into watchmaking nearly here.
Very much so. In fact, one of our challenges this weekend is that the dampers you open and there are all sorts of small pistons and plungers to handle the fluid, and it's like a Swiss watch in there, but we lost one of the seals and the fluid came out.
Oh, I see. You lost your dampening.
We did.
I
and
see.
that's a challenge with a solid axle front car.
Indeed. So you're effectively, this is your dampener here, yes? And then
Correct.
there's a shaft. That's fascinating because for this time in America, they were not this sophisticated yet.
This was very much cutting-edge technology at the
indeed.
time, and it still works beautifully. Just unfortunately, we lost a seal, which we see
happens.
happen with modern F1
That's
cars,
amazing.
and the smoke gets out.
Yeah.
And it was something to drive around. So the choice was leave the car in the paddock where no one can see it
Right.
driving around, or go out there and manage the front axle.
mindful.
And be mindful, like exactly as
Yeah.
you say. Be respectful of the equipment and do what the equipment can do, but don't ask it for what it's not ready to do
Precisely,
today.
precisely. Well, and part of the whole reason to be here is obviously to enjoy a sporting race, but to be able to share this with people in the world,
Oh,
each
absolutely.
other.
Both.
Yeah.
I'm terribly privileged and lucky to be in the seat, but then to show what the car can do to people who would never see one of these dance. And
Yes.
it's part of what they do. They move in a way you wouldn't get
Oh, yeah.
to experience from a modern car. So I get to experience that through the touch of the wooden wheel, but other people can see, oh my goodness, that's how these cars moved? Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why I got so excited when I got to be closer and actually see it. And you know, watching from the driver's lounge and seeing you just thundering up the hill for the turn 1 and just coming in and just kind of dancing like that was beautiful to see the car at speed.
thank
If you
you.
want to take a look here, you can see the actual the Supercharger here, and it's a Roots style positive displacement, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Right underneath the two carburetors.
Yes.
Yeah, so
right there.
it's difficult to see the body of it. And some of the other cars in the field make a little more boost out of theirs,
I
and
see.
that makes it a fair fight.
Yeah, indeed. Well, and if we may, let's have a look at the cockpit a bit. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this car you have to, when it's not up to speed yet, do some pumping to maintain some pressure in the tank for the fuel.
Oh, exactly. I'll show you. Stand still right there.
Here, let me come over so I can hear.
So one of the instruments is a pressure gauge, and you'll see.
Oh, wow.
So now the supercharger makes pressure when you're at speed,
Yes.
and that pressure will force the fuel into the motor.
Got it.
But until you're at speed, you still need pressure. And so part of my job as a driver is to ensure whether it's getting ready to start the car, going to the grid, pace laps, full course caution. I need to make sure we've got all the pressure we need so I have the
Indeed.
fuel pressure ready to go.
And some other things. So this is equipped with a magneto, and it's right here. And then this is this for the rear brakes?
It is.
So handbrake for just the rear if you
It
need it.
operates the same rear brakes that the pedal does.
Yes.
It just doesn't operate the front. So it's not like yanking the parking brake of a modern road car.
Right.
It actuates the rear drums. And that can be useful. There were places I was using that today
Oh, I see.
where I just need to take the edge off the speed, but
Okay.
not really throw out the anchor. Just a couple of fingers, a little touch. Okay, that took off a couple miles an hour.
Interesting.
Let's go through the corner.
Got it, got
a
it.
wonderful tool.
And if I'm not mistaken, let's have a look here. So you have all your pedals over here now. The brake is the one in the middle, clutch
It
on the
is.
left, and gas on the right. But at this time here, there were many cars where the throttle was in the middle and the brake was on the right.
Correct.
Is
correct.
that more of an Italian thing?
Yes.
I
Some of
see.
the Alfa Romeos in this very run group have a center throttle, and once you adapt to it, it makes lots of sense.
Got it.
In fact, the downshifts can be wonderful because you've got the ball of your foot up on the brake, but then your heel can just dab at the throttle, and you can get perfect, crisp downshifts.
Got it. That's spectacular. And this, in fact, is a shifter on the outside here.
Yes, some of the Bugattis have two handles outside,
Oh.
both the handbrake for the rear and the shifter.
I see.
This one being about the latest generation of Bugatti Grand Prix car they did, a little bit different.
I see. Now, is there a typical H-style pattern? Does it keep going? Is it a sequential affair?
It is an H. It works like an H works in even modern cars, but the pattern isn't the same, and the gears aren't where a modern driver would expect them to be.
I see.
Not a huge problem to drive around the racetrack, and that each time you get to a certain spot, you're going to put the lever where it goes. You're not improvisational. You're not making it up as you go along. I arrive at turn 2. The shifter goes to this position.
Got it. Yeah, well, that's fantastic.
You know, driving well in anything, but particularly driving on the racetrack, is not, you're not reacting. Reaction times aren't what make you quick, it's anticipating.
Indeed.
When I get down there, I'm going to perform this task. When you're driving down the road, you're looking into the distance, this is what's happening, I will adjust accordingly. So, but it's even more predictable in general on the racetrack. So something like shifting, yes, it's okay that the shift patterns mirror image or upside down or backwards. Some of these cars use a pre-selector type gearbox, which is nothing
like the
like a
ERAs?
modern. The ERAs do, and it's wonderful. It was essentially the paddle shift of its day.
Yeah.
It uses a stick, but it doesn't work at all like a modern car. But because you're going to do the same thing in the same place at the same time every time, not a problem at all. I get here, I do this, off we go.
Fantastic. Now, here's something to think of that for you it makes a lot of sense because you drive this, but for so many people watching that have no ability to specifically relate, I noticed on this car, there is no roll hoop and there is no seatbelt. However, you're out there very mindfully and safely driving fast. What is it about this car and this time?
Why is that okay?
Yeah, I don't know how to say this. Everybody freaks out, but I would do it too, and you seem to be perfectly happy with it. There's something about this.
Well, I'm not sure that I would go out into the wild in this configuration where you have no idea what people are paying attention to. But when I take it out onto the racetrack, I'm with some like-minded competitors, and rarely do I encounter anyone texting on the racetrack. Right? We all have in mind, now everyone may be successful or competent or achieving to a different degree, but we all have the same goal in mind, and we're all looking out for each other.
Yes.
So can I imagine a better protected configuration? Sure, but the safety comes from making good choices and making a good plan, and then adjusting accordingly too. I come up to somebody who maybe I don't know so well, maybe I don't go by right now.
Find the safety margin.
Exactly. So the driving well is all done from inside the helmet, and some very specific choices go along with not having. You know, I even hate to call it safety equipment because yes, I drive modern cars as well, and it is wonderful to have those things. And I don't want for anyone to be hurt by the process. But when you know your competitors, when you're racing with friends, when you're leaving more margin, you're thinking it through. We do lots of things to minimize the risk while recognizing the danger. Those are two very different words. We can go forth and achieve.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I appreciate you said that very eloquently. I think the biggest safety aspect is what's between your two ears.
Yes,
and making mindful choices.
That's where the safety comes from. I could have all of the most modern technology around me, and if I'm foolish with it, I'm going to get myself hurt.
Right. Well, and it's an example. The first time I ever road raced a motorcycle, I got out on the track and go, oh my God, this is so much safer than riding on the street.
Right, and yet you would encounter people who think motorcycles in general, even the M word, means dangerous. But you can take risk and danger and separate them and make good choices and experience something that, like this, is otherwise unexperienceable.
Well, I think that therein lies an aspect of why racing cars from eras such as this are so interesting and romantic, because there were other facets of everything that went into play, the chess game, the preciousness of it. It wasn't just go out there and go wild and there's very little. Does that make sense? It was more real. There was more to it.
Oh, for sure. What's the word I'm looking for with this? The experience of it is a big part of this for me, to feel the things that Nuvolari would have felt, and to get to share that to a certain degree, showing the car off. But even if there was nobody here, to hear those ghosts would be a magnificent experience. And you said it with romantic. There is a romantic. If there isn't romance in your soul, this isn't going to be the experience for you. There is a danger quality that you need to think about and either embrace or not. This doesn't have to be for everybody, but it's very much my cup of tea. Not to mention that it isn't easy. Going through all of these tasks, making these small, skinny tires work properly, or using the handbrake properly, going through an upside-down shift pattern, and then getting it all to come alive is, for me, a sense of achievement and something to embrace that will light me up forever. Doesn't have to be anybody else's cup of tea, but when you've done it right, it was worth doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I fell in love with vintage racing so much, is one, you get to live beyond your years.
Very much.
And something like this, I think when we spoke a couple days ago, we talked about with all of those things inherently, all the handmade parts, everything has to work together in unison, from the chemical makeup of the fuel and everything being happy and every little part and every aspect of the driver. That's what makes it so rewarding.
Absolutely. And to be sure, in terms of the risk-danger ratio, this car owned by Mr. McCabe is prepared beautifully by David, who looks after
Yes.
it. They understand how race cars need to be prepared. It's not just some old derelict thing dragged out of the woods that's about to fall apart. We take it to the shop and make sure that it's singing properly. And if something's not right, we make it right. These were Grand Prix cars, and they were done very well. But they don't tolerate neglect, and neglect makes it unsafe.
Indeed.
So we take that out of it, and then we go fast.
Exactly. That's the way. All the best things in life are that way. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. It was a pleasure to watch and to be able to see you out there, and it means a lot that you took the time to share it with everybody watching.
Well, it's great to share. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming.
Of course. And I appreciate you showing all the boys, the students, everything too. It meant a lot.
It's a treat to be here.
Keep it alive.
I'm lucky to share.
Thank you, sir.